So first of all, welcome everyone to another installment of webinars for busy lawyers. The focus factor, how to win back your time, energy, and billable hours. We're excited to have you today. And the webinar is presented by attorney Luz Carrion, senior law practice advisor at Lawyers Concern for Lawyers. My name is Amy Levine, director of programs and volunteers at LCL, and I will be your host for today. I'm going to introduce Luz momentarily. If you are joining us for the first time, as a reminder, also, LCL offers one-on-one consultations with licensed clinicians on mental health challenges and substance use disorders. Additionally, we provide educational programming, support groups, and one-on-one consultations on law practice management for the Massachusetts legal community. Our services are confidential and free. And now I am honored to present our speaker, Luz. Prior to joining LCL, Luz was an investigator and assistant bar counsel at the Office of Bar Counsel of the Massachusetts Board of Bar Overseers. She previously served as complaint counsel at the Massachusetts Board of Registration in Medicine, and she's an expert in ethical, regulatory, and practice issues. Currently, Luz does one-on-one consultations on law practice management. She writes articles, speaks regularly at bar associations, MCLE, law firms, and other legal entities. For more details on Luz's background and expertise, I encourage you to review her full bio on our website. And finally, we love and encourage questions, so please use either the chat or the Q&A functions. And now, let's get started.
Thank you, Amy, for that wonderful introduction. I don't like to hear, my bio often. So thank you for that. I'm going to share my screen. If you can, please bear with me. And Amy, please let me know of the questions that come up in the Q&A or the chat. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see it, Amy?
I can see it. It looks great.
Beautiful. Okay. Let's start with our agenda for today. So we're going to start with a brief overview of a prior webinar for busy lawyers, paying attention to attention, hosted and or presented by Dr. Tracy Myers, one of our clinicians here at LCL. At the time of registration for this webinar today, we encourage the attendants to watch this webinar before today. If you did that, great. If you haven't, that's okay. Don't worry about it. There's a link here to the webinar, and you will get the slides afterwards. You can click on the link. I believe the registration had a link as well to the that webinar. We're going to do like a brief overview, like I said. Then we're going to talk about some research on multitasking and related topics. We're going to move then to techniques and technology that you can use to improve your focus. Finally, we're going to put everything into action, and we're going to come up with a plan of action or an action plan. Let's start with the presentation or the webinar from Dr. Tracy Myers. Again, another link here. It's a great webinar because it explains to you the science, the biology of your brain, and how attention works in your brain. There's a few things that I would like to highlight from her presentation. For example, she talks about where attention shows up in your brain. There's the 4 lobes of the brain, and she does a wonderful explanation down to earth in breaking it down, how the attention shows up in your brain. The other point that I wanted to convey on her presentation is that she discusses different aspects of attention. And you will see from her webinar how she explains that attention is interconnected through all these lobes of the brain, as I said before. And finally, she talks about cognitive functioning and attention that's one domain of cognitive functioning. Again, watch the video. I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to focus on this table from her presentation and her slides for purposes of today's presentation. She talked about the subtypes of attention, and we have those subtypes here. We have focused attention, and this is when you have one source of information and you're focused on that source of information, that stimuli, but then you're withholding responses to irrelevant stimuli. One example that is provided in this table is responding to pain. So when you're in excruciating pain, you can only focus on that pain. You're not focusing on anything else that's going on outside or around you. There's another type of attention or subtype of attention, which is called sustained attention. This one is just maintaining that focus for a longer period of time. So you're maintaining attention to complete a task accurately and efficiently over a period of time, like reading a book, drafting a pleading, without multitasking or distractions. Selective attention is maintaining attention in the presence of distractions. So even though you have some distractions going on, you're able to ignore them and are able to consciously maintain that attention in the task at hand. An example that she gives here is focusing on a presenter at a conference and then ignoring all the chatter around you. We want to focus today on alternating attention and divided attention. So when you're shifting between tasks or doing different tasks at the same time, there's a risk that you might not be fully engaged or focused in the primary task at hand. We're going to talk about multitasking later on, but these are the types of or subtypes of attention that I want to focus today and have you pay attention to attention. So I have this question for you, and feel free to answer in the chat portion of the in Zoom. Where do you struggle with attention? Is it maintaining that sustained task, the tasks that take longer? Do you struggle when you're focused, but then you have distractions? The shifting back and forth between tasks, or all of the above, or another struggle that you have? I would like to get a feel for what are your struggles with attention. And Amy, if you can let me know what we see.
So we have a few people who've responded. First person said, shifting to new projects before completion of the previous task.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody else said, all of the above.
Yes. Interesting. So for example, one of the options here, when distractions start, some people are able to work with music. That's fine. Some people, like me, I cannot have music because then I end up singing the song and not doing the work. So I can't.
Me too.
I need to focus, no distractions. And I can't have music. But some people do. Some people do wonderfully with, the music kind of serves as like a soothing mechanism to help them keep focused. But everyone is different. So that's why we're going to try different approaches today.
We have a couple more responses.
Okay.
So somebody else said they struggle with longer, more sustained tasks.
Yes.
Somebody else talked about distractions and interruptions, which does tend to be the life of an attorney.
Yes.
And somebody else said when distraction starts and then shifting back and forth.
Okay, so we have some suggestions today and some possible solutions for you to try. So stay tuned. Pay attention. There was another topic that Dr. Myers addressed in her presentation, and is ADHD. Many attorneys have been diagnosed with ADHD as adults. Some attorneys might have ADHD, but have not been diagnosed. And it is important that if you feel that you might have ADHD or ADD, it is important that you follow through with an assessment and evaluation, because a lot of us in the profession have been diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, and sometimes it's after some sort of traumatic experience, like a problem arising in the practice that could lead to a malpractice lawsuit or an investigation by the BBO. And this slide is directly from Dr. Myers' presentation. And I wanted to show that attorneys or people with ADHD have different symptoms. And most people just see the difficulty focusing or the fidgeting, but there's more to ADHD. And I want to invite you to review this and see if you've struggled with some of these issues. For example, the hyperfixation. So when we're fixated on, let's say you have a case and you're fixated on something that opposing counsel did, and you get stuck on that, or something that opposing counsel said, and you get focused on that, hyper focus, and it narrow your focus, and now you're not able to see kind of the bigger picture. Another example here that I wanted to point out, choice paralysis. A lot of attorneys face this when it's, for another example, handling a case and there's multiple strategies, and just get paralyzed. I don't know what to do. Attorneys who want to open their solo practice, there's so many options, or even engaging in adopting technology. There are so many options out there and so many routes you can go, but you get paralyzed and get stuck. And so the problem, this is different from being overwhelmed. It's just when you're paralyzed, you can't make a decision. So I invite you again to reflect on this and get an evaluation if you feel that there's some symptoms that you have.
And I'll just make a little plug for
Yes.
Dr. Sean Healy's. He has an ADHD group that meets every Wednesday from 9 to 10. So if you're interested in signing up for that, just go to our website. And again, a fantastic group, and you can get helpful tips on how to manage some of these issues.
Thank you so much for that, Amy. You're the best. I want to add a little bit of research and scholarship out there, besides what Dr. Myers discusses in her presentation. There's two individuals that I really like in this field of attention. One of them is Dr. Amishi Shah. She's a psychologist, a professor of psychology, and she's a researcher on the science of attention and the brain's attention system. And she has done, like I said, she has done research, and she proposes, based on her findings, that the brain is like a flashlight, right? And you can only shine the flashlight or your attention system to one point. So for example, if you have the flashlight pointing in front of you, that's where the flashlight, the light, and your attention will be focused on. If you move the flashlight, then you will shift your attention to whatever is in front of you or the flashlight, right? And so when it goes. She also says that multitasking and touch switching it's a myth. What you're doing is task switching, which I know that in our profession, having the ability to multitask is viewed as a plus. And the problem with that is that you're really shifting your attention. And when your brain does that, it costs a lot of energy for the brain to switch from one task to another. So if you're, writing a pleading or drafting a pleading, and then you get your emails coming up all the time and you switch to the email, or the phone rings and you switch, you're shifting your attention, okay? And so redirecting the brain back and forth takes a lot of energy. And I don't know about you, but when you do this, in my experience, what I was, doing a lot of multitasking, at the end of the day, I would feel like drained mentally. Like my brain, I felt like it was mentally exhausting and drained and tired. And that's because, and then I later understood when I read the research, is that it's mentally taxing to be switching back and forth. Okay. And there's some links here. If you want to explore more the research, you can do that through these links. And so she has a practice, the stop practice, that I encourage you to do. This takes a few seconds. You don't have to stop, everything that you're doing. So for example, as we are going to see with the focus sessions later on, if you're doing a focus session and all of a sudden your mind, goes to something else, and you get distracted, try to redirect your brain to the task at hand. How do you do that? This is a technique from Dr. Shah, is that you stop what you're doing momentarily, take a deep breath, observe your thoughts, emotions, bodily sensations, and environment without engagement, and then proceed with improved focus and clarity. This takes only a few seconds. So for example, if you get distracted in a focus session, then like, oh, okay, my mind wandered. Why am I wandering? Quickly go back, redirect yourself, okay? For example, if your mind was wandering because you're hungry, then you're like, oh, okay, hold on. Am I hungry? Yeah, I feel it. I'm hungry. Okay. So then you have to make the decision. Can I hold a little bit more to finish my focus session? Or do I really need to stop my focus session and go and eat something? Because that will also affect your focus. If you're hungry, thirsty, right? Similarly, if you're in a difficult conversation with a client, if you're in a difficult conversation with opposing counsel, if you're in court even, and there's, on a hearing, let's say a motion hearing, there's an argument from opposing counsel that, or some behavior that is making you uncomfortable, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to react and handle that particular situation, doing the stop practice takes only a few seconds. You don't have to stop what you're doing. It's just stopping, recognize, do a quick body scan, right? Am I feeling, tense, sweaty? Okay, I recognize it. Let me just redirect my focus and see how am I going to react? What am I going to do in this moment? Amy, do we have any questions?
No, not just to let people know, they probably see this. People were asking if they will receive the slides, and I said yes,
Okay.
as well as the recording.
Okay. Switching to Dr. Jeremy Hunter. He's a professor. He's also a psychologist, but his focus is on mindfulness and leadership. And so he's a professor in business schools, graduate business schools. And so his scholarship is more on executive leaders, CEOs, and business leaders, and how he's been, how mindfulness helps leaders become better leaders. And that easily translates to the legal profession, because we are leaders too. We are called to be professional leaders in our in lawyering. So what he teaches in business schools and to business leaders could be easily translated to us in practicing with a mindfulness approach. There's a couple of articles here if you're interested. The first one is a little bit older, but I like it because it gives you a solid foundation and an overview of mindfulness and the roots of mindfulness, starting with the Buddhist tradition, and then it transitions into the science, the actual science. For example, neuroplasticity research has shown that engaging in mindfulness practices helps your brain, rewire and perform better. But you have to, again, pay attention to your mind, your thinking, and practice mindfulness. And then the second article is really nice because it talks about the nervous system and how do you use it to your advantage in handling difficult moments as a mindful leader. I'm not going to go into that, but it's really nice. I highly recommend that you read it. So basically, mindfulness is not yoga, although yoga can help in mindfulness. Mindfulness is just being in the present moment, paying attention and being focused on what's going on right here and now, wherever you are. So mindfulness is not, for example, when you go back and start replaying past scenarios in your mind and you get stuck, that's not mindfulness. You're living in the past. You're not living in, being grounded in the moment. And again, when you get stuck thinking about, catastrophic scenarios in the future and can't come back to the moment and the present, that's the opposite of mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply being in the moment and being present and aware of what's going on right here and now. The cost of multitasking, I think we know this. When we are switching, for example, if we're doing, like I said, let's say that you are drafting a motion to dismiss in one case, but then you get a call from a client in another case. Sometimes when we're doing that throughout the day, you might lose, a few minutes here and there in your billing. The problem is that over time, if you're not paying attention, if you're not mindful, you're not going to be able to capture accurately all your time. And that time that you cannot capture in an early case is time that is you cannot bill for, and it's money that you lose. Again, you're prone to more errors. I don't know if it has happened to you. If you're drafting a letter for an important document and you're multitasking or task switching, and then there's errors throughout the document. And if you're not, you don't review it carefully, you might miss those errors. Missing deadlines sometimes, because you're all over the place, you're not paying attention and don't have systems. That's another consequence of multitasking. Again, I mentioned the stress and the burnout that comes with longer patterns of multitasking. And also client dissatisfaction. If your client, the client has to repeat, something 3 times because you were not paying attention, or you're not returning calls, or you're not on top of the case, that could damage your reputation. So let's talk about time management techniques. There's 3 techniques here. I don't know if you've heard about them, but Pomodoro, Eat the Frog, and task batching. I'm going to go through the principle of each technique, but you can adopt this. Pomodoro, 25 minutes of focused sprints, followed by the 5-minute breaks. You can adopt this at the beginning. We're going to talk about that later. Eat the Frog is starting your day with your most important or dreaded task to gain momentum. Now, what if you're not a morning person? So you can, maybe find when is your time for peak performance during the day and use that to do the most important or dreaded task. But the principle is you start the day with the more dreaded task. Task batching, I really like task batching, grouping similar tasks together. So if you're going to do phone calls, you're going to do phone calls, emails, something that is a task that are similar. And then this will allow you to or reduce the possibility of switching different tasks. Scheduling breaks, blocking distractions, and then have a short mindfulness check-in throughout the day. These are all techniques that could help you. Let's do a hands-on exercise here. We're gonna try the clock app in Windows, and it has a focus session that I really like and recommend. If you have Macs, don't worry, we're gonna talk about Macs later, but for purposes of the exercise, we're gonna start with Windows. So if you can quickly check on your computer, if you have Windows, look at the window key on your keyboard or the window icon on your screen. So open the window search option, and you're gonna type run and hit enter. You can also press Windows key plus R. And once you do that, it should give you the focus, the clock, your clock app. Let me know if you have any problems with that. Now, this works in Windows 11. For Windows 10, you have to see which version you have, because you might have it, you might not, you might have to get it in the App Store. So this is how it looks, the clock app. Once you're in the clock app, it should give you a focus session on the left, and then you're gonna get this window open. It's pretty neat for those who like to listen to music while they work. You have the Spotify option here. You can also access the clock app through your date and time on the bottom right of your screen. If you click on that, you're gonna get your calendar, and then you get the focus session at the bottom. You can dock your clock app in your taskbar. I have it in my taskbar because it's easy access. So when you search for the clock app, you're gonna have this first window that will open. Just select pin to taskbar. You're gonna have it in your taskbar, and you can access it there whenever you're ready to do a focus session. So there's more features to the focus session app or session option in the clock app. If you click on this icon, you get the little window or box with the timer. You're gonna have a red X here. It's not showing here, but you should see it. That doesn't close the box, it only hides it. So if you don't wanna see that little timer, you can just hide it, and it will be active still in the app. You're just not gonna see it if you find it distracting. If you don't have this focus session option in your clock, for Windows 10, here's some options here. Macs, these are your options. Because of time, I'm not gonna read through all of them. You can also use the stopwatch feature in your cell phone. Just make sure that you put do not disturb in everything. There are other alternatives. You can download, there's a ton of apps that track the Pomodoro technique. You can also search Focus or Pomodoro in the App Store or the Google Play Store. A word of caution, some of these apps have the option that where you can enter the task that you're doing. You should not be entering, confidential information, client information in that option. And always remember that you have an ethical obligation to vet the technology that you use. Some tips before starting a focus session. Make sure that the time is right and be realistic. So for example, if you know that a task is going to take you half an hour, don't do a focus session, for 50. If you have 15 minutes, do a focus session for 15 minutes. If you know that the task likely will take you half an hour, because it leads to frustration, and you want to build a good habit of maintaining focus. So be realistic. If you don't have the time for a focus session, then don't try it. Then you're gonna select a particular task or batching activity for your focus session. If you're using Microsoft Teams, please make sure that you put the do not disturb before you start your focus session, because I don't know why, but it happened to me once that I was doing a focus session and then the phone rang and I'm like, okay, what happened? And then I did some research and I found out, hey, you should put the do not disturb in Teams to make sure that you're not getting the phone calls. Sometimes the phone calls would get through. Close all the apps or files in your computer except the ones that you will be using for the session. And finally, have the documents or information that you will need readily available. So for example, if you're working on a client file, have the file readily available. You don't want to start a focus session and then have to stop because, oh my gosh, I need this document. I don't know where it is. I have to go and find it, or it needs something else to complete the task at hand. So prepare before the focus session and avoid, eliminate distractions and be realistic. Start small. So if you saw the app, the clock app has the focus session starting, I think, at 25 minutes or 30 minutes. Start with 10 and 15 minutes, okay? Be realistic. This takes practice and time. So your mind might wander during a focus session. That's fine, okay? You're just building, developing a good habit, okay? So this is progress, not perfection. If you get distracted, like I said earlier, one way is to do the stop practice, and have those little breaks between the focus, the sessions. That's important because if you keep going, you might get tired and your attention might decrease. So have even a short break to stretch, walk around, get some water. It's good to have those little short breaks between sessions. Finally, practice self-compassion and mindfulness. This is trial and error. So you may find that, something didn't work out in a focus session. That's okay. Learn from it and then try something different. Maybe an app that you get doesn't work out for you. That's okay. Try another one. So there's a lot of trial and error in developing this habit, but start small, be realistic, and have self-compassion. If you still struggle with attention, again, just pause and reflect and think about whether there's something else going on in your life or your practice. Reach out to LCL, reach out to a professional. If you, like I said, if you think that, maybe I might have ADHD or ADD, reach out to a professional who can evaluate you and adjust. Don't quit. Okay. Again, this is building. It takes time. I've been practicing mindfulness for about 2 years, 2.5 years, and I'm just like in the beginning stages. There's a lot of things that I have to work on, but I can see that over time you're gonna begin to see the improvements and the behavior modification, and you will see it, but it takes time. Okay, it takes time and consistency. Like I said earlier, adjust, don't quit, and you're not alone. We're a community. So talk to each other. If you can share, techniques, what works, what doesn't work. We are all a community. So don't go at it alone. Here are some resources that you can on mindfulness. Again, there's, I think most of them, if not all, are from LCL. And the mindfulness practices from Dr. Tracy Myers are great. They're here. So, look through them, see what, if there's something that, clicks with you. And then finally, I want to, or I invite you to develop a plan of action. And this could be one step, just one step. So whether it's getting a focus app, exploring one of the LCL resources or other resources, like the ones from Dr. Shah and Dr. Hunter, try a 10 or 15-minute focus session this week, or schedule a consult with us. So if you can and if you want, tell us about your action plan. If you have at least one step that you can take relatively soon, you can put it in your in the chat section. You're not obligated to, but we welcome your plan of action. Like I said, we're a community, so we're trying to grow and thrive as a community as well. And Amy, do we have any plans of actions?
Yes. So we have one person who said, try a focus session using the clock app.
Awesome. Try it. You'll love it. I like it. So yeah, awesome. Just try it. And start small. Start with 10 or 15 minutes. Okay. And once you get the hang of it, then increase it. And there's you will see in the slides, there's an option for keeping track of let's say your weekly goal. So you can set up a weekly goal of how many sessions you want to do per day, how many minutes, and that builds your record. Anything else?
Yes. So Luz, we actually have a question. This person writes, one thing that always distracts them is the arrival of new emails. I get a desktop alert with the sender subject and just figured out how to turn that off. So hopefully that helps.
Yes. I know that I deleted my the preview email. I was telling Amy earlier that I deleted that from that alert because it was distracting. So it's just recognize, pay attention to what really distracts you. And if it's the email alert, disable it at least when you're doing the focus sessions, or disable it altogether.
So Luz, we don't have any other comments right now, but I wanted to say your presentation really had my attention. And but I appreciate not only explaining about how our minds work and really what the research is, but putting things into action and also providing some real some apps that people can try and use. So thank you again for that information. One of the things that it's interesting as I think about it, I tend to keep a lot of tabs open. And I don't know, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Or I don't want to label it as bad and good, but do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, actually, it could be distracting. So what I learned on that was from a colleague of mine, attorney Chris Early, who has done presentations for us.
Yes.
And actually, we went to law school together and graduated the same year. We just didn't cross paths because we were in different divisions at New England Law. But something that I learned from him was that try to make a habit, and again, this is mindfulness, of just having the tabs open that you're working on right then and there in your task. Okay. That it takes practice, but one of the things that I would have like 25 tabs, right? And sometimes it still happens. But what I learned with him was, for example, if I'm working on a particular task and I only need 2 tabs open, or maybe 3, right? Those are the only ones that I'm gonna have open. When I finish that task, I close those tabs and then move on to the next task. And if I'm using, my browser and I need to open, sometimes I have to open like 5 tabs. Let's be realistic. But I only have the ones that I'm working at and because I'm focusing on one task at a time, those are the only ones that I'm gonna have open. When I finish the task, close them. Don't. So that's the key. When before moving on to the next task, close the ones that you use, and it gives closure to your task. You know what? I'm done with this. Close it. Let's move on to the next task. But it's just being aware and developing the habit.
Excellent. One of the things that also struck me was that in so many job descriptions, they always say the ability to multitask. And it's frustrating, right? Because now we're learning that that's not how the brain works. But people will still say they multitask,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and I get it. But then the other pieces I'll just mention really quickly is that it's also, and you have that ethics background, that it really, this is important because it can impact your practice, not only with client satisfaction, but also mistakes. And will it lead to some type of malpractice or ethical issue? So anyway, I also thought that that was a really good point.
So I'm gonna date myself a little bit here, but my resume in the early 2000s had, multitasking as a skill. And then I later learned, like, no, that doesn't belong in a resume. That's not a skill. I mean, come on, let's face it. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's not like, there's some things that we can do at the same time. The issue here, especially in lawyering and the legal profession, is that when you're doing all the multitasking under a stressful circumstance or situation, like the cases that we handle, for a prolonged period of time, that's not good for your body, and that's not a skill. Then it becomes, a more of a liability, like you said. So again, yeah, there's some things that we can do at the same time, like 2 or 3 tasks that we might, simple enough that we might do. But this prolonged, stressful multitasking is not good for us. And the science we're not making this up. The science is there. The research is there. It's not good for us. So, of course, my resume now doesn't have multitasking.
Well, hopefully you don't have an active resume right now.
I don't.
Right. Okay. We want to keep you here at LCL. We do have a question asking, this person asks, how do you suggest handling email? Sometimes we need email for our tasks for back and forth communications, but then we end up getting distracted by other emails that show up. It's a great question.
So maybe we should do a webinar just on emails, I think. There's different ways. Okay. So you can set up rules in your email so that certain emails will go to a folder rather, and then you can look at the folder. Like, for example, I get a lot of emails from the vendors that I see at the conferences, and it's like trying to sell me all this stuff. So you can, make a rule in your email to, and depending which one you use, if it's Gmail or Outlook, you can make rules to, put certain type of emails in a folder so that you don't see them. Email is a little bit tricky also depending on the type of practice that you have. Sometimes you do need to respond rather quickly to certain emails. I'm not saying ignore your email. So one way is to, like I said, have the folder, and then if you're doing task batching, and you're just doing emails, okay? And so one way to approach that is that, okay, so I'm gonna do just emails now, and then go through your emails and maybe develop a strategy. Again, this varies by preference and by practice, but one way to tackle is, okay, if you're responding to an email, and then you get a reply and you're trying to go down through your emails, try to hold on the new email that is coming. Keep going through your emails as you planned. And once you finish that, then go back if you have time. But again, it depends on what you're dealing with, because it could be something that is really urgent and you need to, go back to that.
Right.
But that's one way in trying to filter the emails that you feel that they're just like, I don't want to say spam, because there's a spam, but like I said, in my line of work, just getting all those emails from all these vendors, okay? They can go into a folder and then I can look at them later. Or so another example for me, I get articles, a lot of articles for me to read that I need to read to keep up with what's going on. But those type of emails, what I do is I batch them. So those I'm not gonna read. Like, for example, if I'm doing emails, task batching with emails, I'm just gonna focus on the work-related emails, and then I'm gonna leave the ones that are articles for later. And then my next task batching exercise, the next day, let's say, I block some time, and then I'm gonna read the email. So read the articles. So I'm like, okay, so I'm just gonna right now I'm setting aside, a couple of hours just to read articles, and then save the ones that I like, delete the ones that I'm like, there's nothing here. And so that's kind of a combination of task batching and filtering emails. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does. But of course, please, the person who asked that, if you have any follow-up questions. A few things that struck me. So one, in case people don't know, you can, in email, you can create rules so that, again, rather than getting distracted, as Luz said, with each email coming in your inbox, you set up the rule. And so, from a sender, you always say, okay, put into this folder. And then, okay, you can go to it and it's not coming through on a regular basis. One of the things so that was one piece. One of the things that is important to me in doing my job is the customer service and getting back to somebody in a timely manner. And what I've learned to do, although again, this is maybe taking me out of my current task, is when I do get an email and I know it's going to require a little more time to focus, and I still want to focus on what I'm currently what I'm doing is I'll just send an email back saying, I want to acknowledge that I received your email and I'll work on that and get back to you shortly, or I'll get back to you. So at least you're acknowledging that person's email, but you're not then switching to a completely different task. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, because I do keep a close eye, but that's one way. So I'm not, because I do have ADHD, and sometimes folks with ADHD, we follow that shiny penny and want to then react to that question. And again, that helps me know, okay, I got back to that person, customer service is done, but when I have more time, I can focus on that.
So the key is finding what works for you, and that it doesn't, stress you more than it should.
Right.
One technique, or one thing that I do is, I really assess, because sometimes in our line of work, like, everything is an emergency. And so over the years, I've developed, because it's like, oh my gosh, it's an emergency. So you jump in and it's like, this is not an emergency. So I think before jumping, taking a few seconds, step back. Is this really an emergency? Is this really something that I need to tackle, right now, and drop everything? Most of the time it's like, No, this can wait. And I'm not saying ignore it. Sometimes it's like, you know what, this can wait until the end of the day, or this can wait until tomorrow. Doesn't have to be tackled right now. So just having that discernment and judgment to say, okay, is this really, an emergency that I have? And if it is, yes, of course, jump at it. You have to tackle it and handle it and drop everything, because it happens. You have to, there's an emergency in a case and you have to drop everything and deal with it. It happens. But a lot of times it's not an emergency, something that can wait.
Yeah.
Maybe a
Yeah.
day, maybe a few hours, right? And it's just having that again, kind of self-awareness and self-compassion, that you're not a bad employee, you're not a bad lawyer. If in your judgment something can wait, and you say, yeah, I'm gonna wait.
Excellent. So again, hopefully with that person who asked the question about how do you suggest handling emails, hopefully that did answer your question. But I think also, Luz, another good point you made is not one size fits all. And
Yes.
it's learning what's going to work best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And also the mindfulness and being present in the moment. And that's when you're going to do the best job, when you're fully paying attention to the task at hand. And somebody had mentioned, you had talked earlier about some people can listen to music. You said you can't because, again, you start singing along. Same with me, by the way. I can watch TV and do work, but not singing. But somebody had mentioned that there's also a difference between classical music that requires fewer processing resources and
Ah,
songs that require more attention. So I wanted to mention
interesting.
that. That was an
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Okay. And I will just close with this comment on that. I have to say, I've tried to do work and watch TV, and I'm not paying attention to the TV, very little. That's the thing. Like,
Yes.
you cannot, I don't know, maybe some people can, that's fine. Myself, like, I can hear, but for example, if it's a movie, I cannot follow it with full attention if I'm doing work. Like, my focus is gonna
Sure.
be like, am I hearing in the background and bits and pieces? But I'm not really able to engage fully and understand what's going on in TV and fully engage in work at the same time. Maybe I'm getting older and it's, maybe when I was younger, I was able to do it. Now,
Right. Right.
uh,
And I don't do that now. That was really when I was in high school. Um, so we do have actually another question. One of the problems we face as lawyers is the client thinks the problem is an
yes.
emergency,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly the court might not see it that way. We need to manage clients better.
That's 100% correct. And so managing the client expectations with communication, that's key. If you, as part of your onboarding process from the get-go, explain to the client, it might take me, 1 or 2 days to respond to an email, or a phone call. I respond within, 2 or 3 days or 24 hours, whatever your policy is, letting the client know from the get-go. Now, if you have a client, for example, that says, oh my gosh, I have this emergency, because it happens, and it's not really an emergency, then you know what, afterwards, explain to them, have a candid and respectful conversation, and explain to them, okay, this is not an emergency. I'm not saying use these words, but along the lines, this is not an emergency, and let me tell you why, and explain to them, and then have again that ongoing management and line of communication open, so that you educate them as well and empower them to also determine, okay, is this an emergency or not? Because the person who typed in the comment is right. Like, not everything, they might see it as an emergency, and most of the time it's not.
So I don't see any other questions. Here's an opportunity. If somebody does, we have a few minutes left. So if you do have a question, please feel free. But Luz, once again, great presentation. Again, being able to have some solid takeaways, knowing where to go for apps, or again, using that clock and the different methods, people can certainly research a little bit more. Oh, somebody said, thank you. They just set up the rules for the listserv emails.
That's a great example.
Excellent.
Like the listserv emails, like you want to get them and at some point review them, but yeah, sometimes they could get very busy, right? And clog your email. Oh, beautiful. See?
Already a great takeaway. And I think that that's going to be helpful to you. Somebody else also said they also find that writing a schedule helps with their worry that they will forget something. So
yes.
that they,
yes, whatever works for you.
Yeah, I'm a big list person too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Luz, thank you again. This was really wonderful. Hopefully people were able to have some good takeaways and put some of these strategies into place. And hopefully you'll find that you're doing better work and being more productive and billing more, as a big part of this webinar is all about.
You're welcome, and thank you for your time and attention.
All right, right, exactly. Excellent strategies. Thank you very much. So again, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.